Hey YouTube, it's Coco here, and today I'm bringing you another Blu-ray update. Just a little update on myself. I just got my wisdom teeth out, so I'm not feeling that great. I'm on Percocet and stuff, so yeah, they're pretty sore, but I've been in the house for like 2 days trying to recover, and I need something to do, so I figured that I'd talk about the movies I picked up this month. Not a lot. There's only like, I don't know how many, maybe 8. I'm actually funding my film, Demise of Devotion, which is going to be a short horror film which will be released on this channel sometime in February, I'm thinking. If you want to support that, then you can check out the link to my Instagram. It would really help me out if you check that page out and maybe give it a follow. There will be a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff on there. That being said, let's get into it. So the first one is a newer film. It just came out this year. We always start with new releases on this channel. It's a pretty good film. I thought it was actually amazing. It's my second favorite film of the year thus far. It's kind of a science fiction horror film, but also action, and the movie I'm talking about is Upgrade. Upgrade was so amazing. There was a lot of character depth in this film. It really, really broadcasted its character and the horrible thing that happened to him. And, it's very typical in films to see our heroes struggle a little bit. It helps us relate to them. It helps us kind of get behind them on their journey. And this guy really struggles. You feel really bad for him. But it never feels like they're intentionally trying to draw sympathy. Obviously they are, but it doesn't feel artificial. This movie is amazing. The gore in this movie is really good too. There are some gross out scenes. The visual aesthetic is very, very nice, and the soundtrack's kind of cool too. I'd say it's almost in the same vein as like this year's Revenge or Drive or something like that. Not quite. It's a little bit of a different piece, but still super, super great. I loved the ending as well. It has somewhat of a twist that I didn't really see coming. I feel like lots of people will, though. Regardless, though, Upgrade is a phenomenal film. Next one is a movie that is not a phenomenal film. It's actually kind of shitty. I love the first two. I think I've talked about them on this channel. Not at length, but I have talked about them. My girlfriend and I watched this, and there's a couple good scenes, but for the most part, it's pretty bad. And this is Open Water 3. So this one's about sharks, again, which is kind of a nice return to form, pardon me, because Open Water 1 was obviously very much about sharks, and then number 2, they just kind of got stuck outside their boat, and nothing happened for 2 hours. Not a great movie. This one's better than that, I'd say, just on on appeal alone of there being sharks in this movie, and there's a couple. And what I was really surprised with was that they aren't handled too poorly here. Some of the kills are actually pretty well shot. Well, nothing in this movie is well shot. It's actually very shadily made. But the kills do look somewhat genuine. But again, these are fleeting moments in the film. The majority of the movie is very, very bad. The plot, I don't even remember the plot, if it existed. Something regarding a life raft, and they were going on a cage dive, and the sharks, their boat capsized, and it's a shitty reef, basically. But yeah, I'd say give that one a pass, probably. This one, on the other hand, is a terrible movie that I think you should watch. Again, I watched it with my girlfriend, and I don't think we stopped laughing the entire time. It's quite a hilarious movie. You probably already know what it is, especially if you're into bad movies, but it is Troll 2. Famous line from this movie, everybody knows it. It's they're eating her, and then they're gonna eat me. Oh my god. He says it with a little bit more spunk than that, but that's kind of like how it sounds. And this fucking troll, he's my favorite. Well, actually, they aren't even trolls; they're goblins. Yeah, this movie's a nightmare, but it's so ridiculously entertaining and hilarious. There is one scene that we loved regarding popcorn. Please watch Troll 2 if you haven't. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but you should watch Troll 2. It's fucking hilarious. That being said, the next one I got here is Falling Down, Michael Douglas. I've been a fan of Michael Douglas not for too long. I haven't seen much of his stuff, but I love Basic Instinct. And Fatal Attraction was okay. I didn't think it was anywhere near as good as Basic Instinct. The Game is pretty good as well. I like that movie, good Fincher movie. Lots of people have a lot of problems with the ending, which I can understand, but I still enjoyed it. Falling Down, though, really, really good film. This is basically about a guy who just loses it. He goes berserk, and, at first it feels very unjustified, and it's a very interesting character study, because he's a horrible person. There's no doubt about that, but he still has some moral integrities that he upholds. It's very hard to describe, and you have to watch it for yourself. But a phenomenal performance by Michael Douglas. And the film really wraps up in a meaningful way. I thought it was great. I loved it. So next we're going to get into the horror stuff, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of my collection. I guess that we've already talked about some that are technically horror. But the first one, this one was released. It was released back in 2001, I believe. I could be mistaken on that, but it just got this new Blu Ray release. Ichi the Killer, or Ichi the Killer. I love this film. It's an exploitation film at its hardest. It's pretty disgusting. There are lots of scenes of sadomasochism and torture, but it's still a great film. It's based on a manga, which never really hurts. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, I'd give it a watch. Very, very brutal, very, very sexually explicit. It's an exploitation horror film, and it's one of the best exploitation horror films as far as I'm concerned. But the guy I forget this guy's name, he's not Ichi. Everyone makes a very big point in reviews and stuff to say that. I don't know why it's a big deal. It's not the first time that we've seen another character's face on a poster when another character is the title character. But, people make a big deal out of it. I thought that he was one of the most compelling characters that I've seen in a long time, especially for an exploitation horror film. Typically they're a lot more sleazy by nature. And this one isn't, it's sleazy, but I thought that the character was done so well and was so interesting, very deranged and fucked up. Ichi, though, I didn't really care for. I thought he was kind of a meh character myself. We're going to keep it exploitation with this next one. This is a film I've been waiting to watch for a long time. Finally watched it, picked up this double feature, and it is I Spit on Your Grave, Part 1 and 2. This is the rape revenge story. Again, going back to Revenge earlier this year, although it's more brutal than that one. And obviously The Last House on the Left would be a big inspiration for I Spit on Your Grave. Actually, I don't know which one came out first, because this is the remake of I Spit on Your Grave. There's a remake for Last House on the Left. And then there's the original Last House on the Left, which came out in the 70s. And there's an original I Spit on Your Grave, which I want to get on... I want to get my hands on. It's just really hard to find. I don't know if it has a Blu-ray release yet. But this one was really good. I thought the acting overall was really good. There's a lot of heavy torture scenes, which is to be kind of expected of exploitation horror, but they're handled so delicately, and the rape in this movie is absolutely horrible. It's so I have yet to watch Irreversible, but this is the worst rape scene I've ever seen. It makes you feel like shit, but it's supposed to. It's a rape scene. And it's so gratifying to see her get these guys at the end. I have not watched I Spit on Your Grave 2. I don't know if I am going to. I'll probably get around to it sometime, but not big on my list. This next one is one that I saw snippets of when I was a kid. It's a sequel to a very, very famous movie. Some say it was the first slasher movie. I don't consider it a slasher movie. The first one anyway. But this one is Psycho 2. With Anthony Perkins, of course, renewing his role as Norman Bates. This one shows what happens when Norman is set free from the mental institution, and it's actually a pretty good slasher. I was surprised. The acting from Anthony Perkins is very, very good. It always is. I'm a huge Perkins fan. Obviously, this movie doesn't come near touching the original. Psycho will forever be one of the greatest horror films of all time. That being said, this one is still a very good sequel. It's a lot better than I anticipated it being, and it's kind of cool to see Norman trying to fit back into the world. And there's some cool kills, too, which I don't know. There wasn't many of them, and it wasn't handled in a brutal fashion or anything. Nothing to write home about, but not bad. This movie, though, was a piece of shit. I watched this one last night. I fucking hated this movie. It stars Linda Blair. The only reason I picked it up is because it's a Scream Factory, and it was on sale for really, really cheap, which is rare where I live. Scream Factories are very expensive up here. But fuck, this movie's bad. It's Hell Night. There's a... Like, objectively speaking, I think that Hell Night is a better movie than Open Water 3. However, Open Water 3 was at least somewhat entertaining on a level. I'm not saying it was entertaining. I shouldn't go that far. It was a piece of shit. But it was, you could still, there was a badness to it. I don't know how to describe it, but this movie, it commits the worst act that a movie can do to me, which is bore me. This movie was so fucking boring. The writing was terrible. The dialogue was stupid. The characters were stupid. There's this blonde guy in here, and I think he was supposed to be a comic relief. But when they try way too hard to make a comic relief funny, and it makes you cringe. You're like, that's not funny. It's just uncomfortable. That's how this movie was. The acting was shit. The effects are fucking shit. It's a wannabe slasher film, and that's my problem, is I love slasher movies. I'm coming around to them now. I hated them for a very long time. But there has to be a lot of character with a good slasher movie, I think. There has to be a lot of... and if you're not going for character, then the kills have to be gruesome. There has to be some identifying factor. This just feels like a conveyor belt 80s... Let's throw it together for super cheap and fuck them. It feels like that kind of a slasher movie, which is the worst kind. Nothing bothers me more than when filmmakers don't give a shit. I'm not saying that they didn't necessarily. There was probably some passion put behind the project, but it lays flat. It's nothing to remember. So that's all I got for this month. Again, quick little update. Don't have a lot of money because I'm funding my movie. But I'm going to put a link to my Instagram. It would really help me out if you follow that. Apart from that, I hope all is well. As always, any digital codes that you want in here, I can email you. Just let me know in the comments. And that said, I'll see you next time.